You know, as soon as I heard 2D platformer that I was interested. And then add in apocalyptic themes with a roguelite genre, curiosity was always going to get the better of me here. Collapsed just dropped for the Nintendo Switch this week, after a year or so of being available elsewhere. Let's check it out to see if it's worth being on your radar. Stick around for the verdict at the end and subscribe to the channel if you're digging these indie game reviews. Collapsed gives you 4 different classes on which you can play through randomly selected levels to get loot and the ability to power up. There's talk of memories and bits of storyline that you can learn along the way, but it's really hard to say beyond that what is going on with Collapsed. So you're in it for the gameplay. Make your way through worlds, opening portals that bring hordes of enemies to fight you, and if you do it well enough, you will find a boss to take on the 3rd level of each world. It's quite repetitive, but it's fun enough to hack and slash your way through. Classic 2D platforming with double jumps and dashes allow you to make your way quickly around the levels, and perhaps one different feature is the ability to climb walls. This does sometimes lead to the character model getting stuck in certain spots, but once you're accustomed to the controls, they serve the purpose well. The dash, which comes with a moment of invulnerability, is essential to repositioning yourself in battles that often contains many enemies fleeing themselves at you. Collapse does have a lot of range fighting occurring, and getting used to the dual analog stick shooting elements is going to make your life a lot easier. Collapse can be pretty brutal early on, and the damage has been ramped up pretty high, which can make the early playthrough of the game quite frustrating. You often find yourself in situations where only a few projectiles will put you quickly to your death, and good luck if you're unfortunate enough to touch a spike in this game. Whilst the enemies, which do have a good variety and difference in the way they attack you, can deal a lot of damage, they often can be taken care of pretty quickly if you stack them up in a corner. Fighting mechanics become pretty intuitive, and I had no issues here once I had gotten used to the Switch controller layout. I have to say I'm still not sold on the Switch as a controller for games that make use of all the shoulder buttons, but that might be my own lack of experience with it. The different levels in the game are nice, and the developers have clearly tried to make each area a different theme, which I can appreciate. The art in the game is to a high standard, without there being too many moments in which I was blown away. I do like the music and the animations, so stylistically you can give Collapse a tick in terms of its art and character model design. The verdict. One of the first videos I saw when doing a little look around for Collapsed had a big thumbnail with the words, "The next Dead Cells" on it. Yes, there's a good chance that term was used as a clickbait strategy, but I think one of the downsides of Collapsed is that it's just too easy to compare it to other games that might have done it a little bit better. For the record, I wouldn't compare Collapsed to Dead Cells, as you will be left a little disappointed on almost all accounts. The boss fights in Collapse could have been a great way to change pace, however they were often over before you blinked. The bosses have the ability to take you out in just 1 or 2 rotations, and I won a few just by spamming bullets at them and dodging a wave or 2. In a game that is all about learning and improving your knowledge of enemies and fighting mechanics, this was pretty lackluster for me. I would have loved the chance to be in those boss fights for a little bit longer and find out what their different attacks were going to do so I could dodge and use some strategy to get through, but that was missing there. There is a lot of customization available, and you cannot criticize the amount of items that you get along your runs. I did find them all a bit generic, and it was tricky to compare your current items with the ones that you could potentially replace them. I did like a few of the item features that allowed you to have bouncing bullets, but I was never super excited to find a new item, as they mostly were low-level stat increases that just didn't change the gameplay too much. I'm a big fan of the 4 different classes and the way they have distinct differences in the way you fight through the levels. And I was surprised that your skill tree improvements stay active when switching to a new class. All in all, Collapse does a lot of things well, without ever really smashing it in any area. I did get some serious frame drop problems on my most recent run, though it wasn't too much of an issue on others, so maybe something to keep an eye out for. Collapsed is a good fun game, and perhaps being on the Nintendo Switch, when not all the other games of this genre are, gives it a bit of an edge. I give Collapsed 7 out of 10, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one as well.